Good morning, Father. Welcome to
Thank
this
you, Elo.
session with me, Brother Elo. So I never expected to be here with you, or you here with me, but
Yes,
I'm so happy.
yes. Well, I thought we were just going to sit and have a cup of coffee, but I have my coffee here, and I'm happy to talk about whatever you'd like to right now this morning.
Yeah, actually, listen to your talk last night, so it was really inspiring, and I think it's really gives me a lot of inspirations, and also not only me, but I think for the young people will listen to your experience, life as a Jesuit. They wonder why this handsome man want to decide to join a Jesuit life, diba, Father? Why Jesuits, not other lives? So maybe the first thing that maybe can do a bit introduction about yourself.
Sure.
And where country that's coming from.
Yeah. So my name is Joseph Simmons. They call me Joe. In Spanish, they would call me Pepe.
Pepe.
Pepe, which is a fun nickname. I went to a Jesuit high school, a secondary school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I'm from. And then I went to the university, Marquette University. So it'd be like going to the Ateneo High School and then the Ateneo for university. And when I was there, I had Jesuit teachers who I loved. And they were good educators. They were good communicators. It seemed like they took God very seriously and they took the students very seriously, but they didn't take themselves too seriously. So they could joke about themselves. It was fun to see them, the brotherhood that they had. And I remember thinking like, oh gosh, maybe I could do that. And I thought, no, priesthood, that's weird. That's not something I would ever want to do. But just slowly over time, it became clear like, oh, I could see doing this because I was interested in teaching. And I took, my faith is important to me. I always had a live sense that God was real. And if God is real, then my life should maybe be affected by that. And so I volunteer taught after I graduated university for 2 years, and then I joined the Jesuits in the Midwest of the United States, in the state of Wisconsin, which is home of cheese and beer, because there are a lot of Germans and Irish who migrated there, and so that's sort of my background.
So, well, Father, because you mentioned about the figure of the Jesuits. I too, really inspired by the Jesuit. As you last night, when you give a talk, I really feel that wow, this man is really a very good teacher. The way you preach, the way you talk, and then you walk around, so everyone is like staring at you like this and like this. So it's like the eye contact is really really helpful for us. So I think that's how Jesuit open themselves in a very different moments in the places, like very open to talk with you, something like that.
Yeah.
So Father, what is your turning point that leads you to decide to become a Jesuit?
Yeah, that's a great question, Elo. I think when I was in the university, I studied abroad in Spain and then Italy. And I was 20 years old, 21, and I was going to church in these beautiful churches in Spain and Italy, and like there were no young people there. And I'm like, wait a second, isn't this where the faith comes from? The Spanish Catholicism, Roman, and I had this sense like every generation needs to have people who take their faith seriously and step forward. And I just felt like God was sort of stirring something in my heart, like, Joe, I have a plan for you. And so when I came back my senior year of university, my final year, I was trying to figure out what to do after graduation, and I went on a silent retreat, which was very helpful, for 5 days. And then when I turned down the volume on my own plans, I could finally hear God kind of speaking and seeming to be saying like, I want you to think about this, I want you to do this. And I know that was not the plan for my family, because my mom wasn't like, oh, I want to have a priest as a son. Like, she did not want that. She wanted grandchildren. So I knew it was something not coming from me, not coming from my parents' expectations, but something that I think the Lord was putting in my heart. And I said, well, the Jesuits have formed me. I will think about this. And so I started discerning again my senior year of university.
So how do you get to response to your parents, because since they did not allow you to become a priest, so is there like negotiation that mom, it's okay, I will be like this. Or is there any negotiation?
Yes, I mean, they never said you can't do that, but they were never like pushing me. You know, so I don't feel like I'm living out my parents' hopes that, you know, like I want my son to be a businessman, I want my son to be a doctor, I want my son to be. No, it was none of that. But what was interesting is, I think for my mother to see the community that we had when I was in philosophy studies, my parents came down from Milwaukee to Chicago just for the afternoon, and they're like looking and they're like, hey, these guys like each other and they're normal, or if they're not normal, they're at least not normal together.
That's right.
And I think then she's like, oh, okay, I think I understand it, because I think most parents, what they want for their children is that they're happy and they're healthy. And you know, over the years, I think my mom could just see like, no, I am actually quite happy, I'm quite healthy, I'm not lonely. I mean, everyone has some evenings when you go to bed and you're like, oh, I miss my friends or something. But I don't think, I think people from the outside look at religious life and say, oh, that must be so lonely, you don't have a wife.
Right.
And you're like, I'm with people all day. So by the time I go to bed, I'm like, I'm happy to go to bed and just to be with the Lord, you know. So it's interesting, the fears that you have before entering, or what other people view and say, oh, that must be so difficult. Like, there are difficulties, but anything worth doing will have certain difficulties and challenges. But I think it's such a rewarding life. I always tell my students, like, I love being a priest. I love being a Jesuit. I don't know why more people don't do it. But I think there's these barriers or these fears that like, oh no, I couldn't do that. Either like, I'm not holy enough, or my parents will be upset because they want grandchildren, or I could never imagine doing that. And I just say like, you know what, you have to discern to get over those fears and to confront those fears and to figure out what is the Lord calling me to? Because if God plants these desires in our heart, He'll give us the grace, what we need in order to fulfill it, I think.
Yeah. So I agree with what you mentioned about like, no, parents, no, they don't force us, they push us that, no, you have to become a priest, or you don't. But they just give us freedom to choose. And as a parent, somehow they worried that, is it the right thing that he chose? Because as you mentioned, but they want happy. They want us to be happy, you know, to live a happy life, to, if we have a family, good family, if we're religious, to become a good priest, something like that. So I think for some people, some family, they don't understand what this religious life is and what is our decision are going to be. So sometimes they try to put themselves in, so they force that you have to become a priest, otherwise you cannot be a successful person, something like that. So but for the Jesuits, no, I think our formation is really give us a freedom to choose and discern what is really best for us and our mission and a family. So I think it's very great, Father. So as you mentioned about alone, so often I heard about people mention about loneliness and alone. So can you give some ideas or opinions about? Of course, we are alone, but not loneliness. Or some people say you are loneliness, but you are not alone. So, so is it any?
Yes, I think of so I mentioned last night Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher. He says that most of man's problems come from his inability to sit alone in his room, you know, or a person's difficulties. So that's not about whether you're married or avowed religious or a priest or single. It's about, can you be comfortable with your solitude? Can you sit and read a book or pray or reflect or enjoy music by yourself? Or do you need to have constant like stimulation all the time? And he says that people get into trouble when they can't sit still for a while, which is interesting because I think we think of it as like, oh, now with cell phones, people can't, everyone's distracted. Like, people have always been distracted. People have always had difficulty being alone with themselves. So that's a constant spiritual struggle that you have, whether you're married or single, whether you're a priest or not. So I think I'm very extroverted, so I like to be around people. You can see I like to gesture wildly. But as I get older, I'm appreciating the value of being an introvert too, and going to my room at night after dinner and just like, I'm just going to kind of enjoy the pleasure of my own company and to kind of sit with the Lord in that quiet. I often think about like a married couple, first thing in the morning, they don't get up and they don't have to talk.
That's right.
They can sit and enjoy a cup of coffee. They kind of understand each other in that language of silence. I think that's what it's like in my room. Like just me and the Lord, like enjoying each other's company, not needing to fill it in with lots of talking. I think that's what it means to kind of be alone with the Lord, to enjoy solitude, which is not the same thing as loneliness. Because you can be lonely in a very crowded room or on a train or a bus. You could feel very lonely, even though you're surrounded by people. And you can feel very connected with God even when you're alone in your room.
So that's right. In today's rapid change in the world, that somehow we don't get to know much of ourselves, and then we don't get to sit with ourselves, as you mentioned about this. Let's get friendly to ourselves, and then to know about ourselves. To know more about ourselves, as you mentioned, we have to be alone. To give some time to the alone and to be with the Lord. So Father, to discern a vocation to the societies of Jesus today in a changing, rapid world, what can you say about it in today's digital world?
In the digital world, I mean, when I joined the Jesuits in 2006, this was before smartphones, that's how old I am. I think it was a little easier not to feel like, you're looking, where's my phone?
That's right.
So there is a needed detox to kind of be able to set the phone aside. I think that you pointed out the interiority, the need for quiet inside. People need to be able to find, who am I actually? Who is the Lord in my heart, and how does God speak to my heart in silence? Not necessarily just on YouTube videos or anything like that. Except for this one, of course. This is great. But I think I was involved with the Jesuit Post, which is a website in the United States that talks about like faith and culture. And I was writing spiritual blogs about, I found like most of my blogs are about, okay, now that you've read this article on the internet, now turn off the internet and go and sit and pray, or go and sit and reflect, or go for a walk and enjoy nature. So I think using the tools that we have with technology, as Ignatius would say, use them insofar as they're helpful and set them aside when they're no longer helpful. So to say, okay, we'll use the tools and then we'll set them aside to cultivate that interiority, to listen for like, okay, God, what is it that you are asking me to do? And how do I pay attention to the stirrings in my heart and in my head? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good information, and also a good reflection for us as a young Jesuit. Now we are exposed to this any kind of social media that somehow always get us awake in the night for a long time, get less sleep because scrolling.
Yeah.
But what good for what you mentioned about this? Maybe sometimes just keep it away. You get to God and pray. I think this is really important.
It's sort of thinking about like, let's say you have a big dinner and then someone brings out a big cake, a big dessert, right? Or was it halo? I ate a big dinner the other night with some friends, and then we had a big halo, and I'm like, you know what? I'm already full. I don't need more. But we had it anyways, and then I had a stomachache. It's sort of like, I think that with social media too, like when you've already had a lot, you're
That's
like,
right.
you know what? I don't think I need more dessert. I don't think I need more internet. So we kind of learn the rhythms when our body's even saying like, no, I don't need more of this right now. I need to go for a walk, or I need to go for a run, or I need to hang out with a friend, or I need to be alone in my room with a book, or with my thoughts, or in prayer. So it's paying attention to like, I don't need someone telling me, turn off your phone, stop but it's when we pay attention to the rhythms of our own heart and just say, yeah, I don't need any more of that right now. What I need is silence.
That's right. Because before I get to like scrolling TikTok, Instagram, and of course YouTube, but then I find myself disturbed. So because I have to split all my attentions to this, or this time I have to scroll this. So I get to the press very little. So then I said to me, interiorly, like it's not comfortable anymore. So I have to stop. So only one is enough. Facebook is enough. This is a good. We can communicate from Facebook is good enough. As long as I pay much time with myself and with God.
Yes.
God. So thank you very much for this reminder, Father. So I think have you been feeling like regret about yourself as a Jesuit this time?
Not today yet, but no, I mean, you know, I entered in 2006, and now it's 2026, and I realized, oh my gosh, I've been a Jesuit for almost 20 years.
20 years.
And when I was first entering the Jesuits, people would say, I've been a Jesuit for 20 years. I think like, that's ancient, but like 20 years have gone by very quickly. And I have no regrets. There were difficult times. There were times where I'm wondering like, why, Lord, did you send me here? Or why am I doing this? But, you know, we talked a little bit last night in a conversation about the importance of stories for preaching, for learning about who God is, for learning about human suffering, our own and other people's. And I think I'm firmly convinced that just as Jesus took on humanity to show us the way back through the difficulties of life, to get back to God, that every moment, every challenge we face, it's to say, okay, Lord, what are you teaching me here? I don't think God sends us sicknesses or storms or difficulties. The world sends those things. The natural world, human sin, sends us these difficulties. But the Lord is always there to say, all right, Joe, like, here's the lesson you can learn. And if there's a lesson to be learned, there's no need to have regrets. But I think my novice master, the head of us, he was a man who had a brain tumor. And they said, you're not going to stand again, you're not going to walk. And like, he fought it, and he was not only walking, but running marathons, you know, like 40-kilometer marathons. And he said, Ignatius Loyola wants men that he has to rein in, not spur on. He wants men with big hearts and desires. And then maybe the superior will say, okay, well, you're not going to do that, but maybe you can do that. Like Ignatius wanted men with passion. And if we live with passion, even if we're told sometimes, no, you can't do that, no, maybe not, maybe later. There have been a number of times where I was told, no, you can't do that. But it was never like shutting me down, it was just redirecting that energy. So at the moment it felt difficult, you know, but I don't have regrets because God will use that energy, use those passion, desires. I mean, here I am having a conversation with you in the Philippines,
right,
you know, and I'm teaching class back in the United States in a few days, but like, this is great. This is the kind of stuff that Jesuits can do, to be around the world and be men of passion.
So I too experienced that, no, Father. Somehow, like, I have to leave my family to come here, or the people I don't know, and I have to sleep alone. And sometimes I have to struggle with this situation and these situations. But I never feel regret about this life. So I feel that no, it's God's always over everything. So He always rules everything, even me. So all these struggles always in His hands. So I believe that.
And you know, there have been a few times where I've tried to like take the wheel, like, no, I'm in charge, God.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the plans, and then I want you to kind of bless my plans afterwards. And that's usually when things don't go well.
That's right, that's right.
When I'm trying to be in control, and you say,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I guess I have to turn the wheel over to Jesus. You know,
Yeah.
there's a song like, Jesus, take the wheel. You know,
Yeah,
like,
that's
you want
right.
Jesus driving the
Yeah.
car. I think that's kind of what our life is about, and that's what
Yeah.
makes it work.
Yeah.
Which looks totally strange to a world that says, no, you have to be in total control of your life.
Yeah, that's
Like the answer is like, no, because we're not in control of much in life.
God controls everything. So I really, I mean, for me, like this idea that really gives me a sense of hope that no, I'm not alone. There is someone that's more powerful than anyone else who is watching over me. So I'm not afraid. I never regret about this life. So something like that. So Father, because of time, so
Sure.
What message do you want to give to the young people who are discerning to be a religious life, any religious life, and especially for the Jesuits?
Yeah, I guess my advice would be courageous. It's important to name what the fears are and be honest about those. It's helpful to have a spiritual director who can kind of walk you through those to say, it doesn't sound like God would say, oh, I'm terrified of the Jesuits because maybe I have to live away from my family. Like, Jesus asked his disciples to, set aside their families and go and do things. That's the sound of the Holy Spirit in the background. So to have courage, to be able to talk with the spiritual director, someone who is wise, who can kind of help you sort through the different movements of your heart, and to name those things, and to trust that if God has put these desires in your heart, He will show you the pathway forward. But Jesus repeatedly says, and the angels in the scripture say, be not afraid, because I think He understands that most of the time we're operating more out of fear than out of courage, and He wants us to be courageous.
So thank you very much for this time, even very short time, but I learned a lot from this, and I hope it will help me and others to discern well, whether religious life or family life, as long as we surrender everything to God. So thank you very much, Father, for your time, wisdom, and knowledge, and help me to become more, I could say, sweet in the future also as you. So thank you very much, Father.
Thank you, Brother Elo.
Father. Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. This is great.